Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacey and Phil Thompson.
And welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacey.
And my name is Phil Thompson. It is great to be with you today. We normally do this on a weekly basis. We are actually a tech company that loves to help churches. That's one of the reasons we do this podcast. What do we actually do very quickly, Steve?
We provide live streaming, mobile apps, church management, and websites.
And we are involved in our churches, been involved in our churches most of our adult lives in all sorts of different things, leadership capacities and maybe not so much leadership capacities. We love helping the local church. And so it's great to have everybody with us today. And today we have a very special guest, and his name would be?
Kevin Purcell.
Kevin Purcell is with us today. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing well. Doing great. I just lost. There we go. I'm looking for your bio here. I want to tell people all the great things you do. Kevin, you are a senior pastor, and you're based out of a town of Valdez, North Carolina. But you also do a lot of tech stuff. You have a podcast yourself that you do called Theotech. Tell us a little bit about why is the name of the thing called Theotech?
Well, that was just kind of a catchy name that we could come up with and also get a domain name of.
Yeah.
And, it's Theo being God is the root word there. And then tech, T-E-K instead of C-H. We just decided to do that for creativity, I suppose.
There you go.
And it's, Theotech.com is our website. And we just talk about various things related to church. Because of the makeup of the hosts, most of us are Bible software gurus. In fact, we have two employees of different Bible software, Accordance Bible software, and then also Olive Tree Bible software. And so for that reason, that ends up being about half of what we talk about. But then the other half is just general technology as it relates to being in ministry and church. And so we have a good time. Do it every Tuesday night, and it usually comes out. In fact, I just published last night's addition to our website today. So if you went to theotech.com, you'd see that.
Theotech.com. And you also have a website, kevinpurcell.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really the same website. It both go to the same spot. And I don't do a whole lot more than post the show notes to Theotech on, that website. Yeah. Used to be I'd put a lot more stuff on my site, but I use more social network for just personal stuff these days. Like Twitter, I'm K.A. Purcell, and then that's kind of where I put just my opinions and links to things I find interesting and that kind of thing.
And you've got some education behind you. You actually have a doctorate of ministry in preaching from Gordon Cornwell Theology Seminar. You've also got a master's from Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. You got your Bachelor of Arts from Georgetown College. And so you are very much involved in, you're very, very well schooled, I guess. But how did you get, so this stuff I'm looking at here, I just read all your accolades here, but you have a real bent, obviously, towards tech. And how did you get into really, going from being a pastor to really moving into more of the tech area?
Well, I guess I'd say I came at it naturally. My father taught electronics at a small technical college, Milwaukee area technical college, where I grew up. And, he was always into computers, bought our first computer when I was, 11 years old or 12 years old back in the early 80s. And, so we always had that stuff around. And then my father-in-law was also very interested in it. And he gave me my first computer when I was engaged to his daughter, my wife now, Barb. And so when he gave me that first computer, it was an old compact IBM PC compatible. And I just kind of took off from there. I got interested, and then I jumped into the writing about technology with the old Christian Computing magazine that's now no longer in existence.
We know the editor-in-chief very well, Steve Hewitt.
Yeah, Steve Hewitt. I was just a subscriber, and just wrote him a letter saying, "Hey, I like your magazine, but I wish you had more, Bible software stuff in here and a little bit more advanced stuff." And he said, "Well, good. Why don't you write it?" And I thought, "Well, I can't write. I don't know anything about,
It
And
sounds
he
just
said, "I
like
bet
him.
you could. Send me something." And so that's how I got into writing about it. And then from there, I started writing for a couple of secular mobile sites called GottaBeMobile.com and Notebooks.com, and more recently, I'm writing for Church Tech Today. Now that Christian Computing Magazine was bought out by Outreach, and I just decided to part ways with them after that happened.
Yeah. Well, that's good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about our subject today, Bible software. So tell us, there's, years ago, there wasn't a whole lot out there, but now there's lots of different Bible software programs out there, lots of things happening. I tend to think of LifeChurch.tv with their deal. What's their call? It's called.
Well, that didn't really count, right?
I don't know.
We're talking about different. We're talking the real study Bible tools, right? That's what we're getting into.
Is that what we're getting into, Kevin?
Yeah, and you as a former pastor and current pastor should
know that.
Should know that, right? Is that what we're talking about today? Are we talking about the really heavy duty get into the Word and all the cross references and different translations and all of that?
Well, yeah, we can do both. I think there's really kind of two different. I think of it as Bible study software and then Bible reader software.
Right. Yeah.
So the Life Church
reader side is more on the mobile, whereas there are great Bible study apps, but and then when you're talking about using your desktop or your laptop or something like that, it's more. I think that more is where people like me who are doing, sermon prep, or scholars who are, working on a doctoral dissertation, where they would get into more of the hardcore Bible study software.
All right, so let's jump into that. I remember getting one many, many, many moons ago. It came on a disc, and I had to load it up. Took forever to load the thing. I can't even remember the name of it right now, but it was probably well over 10 years ago. So let's talk about that. What are the ones out there, and give us some feedback on what you like.
Well, just to put some perspective, my very first Bible study program was called Quick Verse, and it came on a stack of 5 1/4-inch floppy disks. You didn't even install it on the computer. It ran from those disks. So if you search for the word God, it would first ask you to insert the first disk, find all the hits. Then it would ask you to insert the second disk and find all the hits. But we've come a long way from that, and now there's some pretty incredibly advanced stuff that's going out there. It's more than just reading and searching for words. There's probably the biggest names in Bible software. It's kind of gotten smaller here in the last few years, but I would say number one would be Logos Bible Software, owned by a company they recently rebranded to Faith Life, FaithLife.com. But Logos, they've been around forever and have some of the most advanced tools for studying the Bible. Accordance Bible Software, as in we're all in one accord, accordance. And if you go to Accordance Bible, I think is their website.com. And they are also a pretty advanced tool for, the hardcore studying. But both of those can also be used for simple stuff as well. In fact, one thing I love about software today is if you just put in your passage, it'll go and sort of grab everything out of your library, whether it's commentaries, Bible books. It'll even search, other kinds of books, dictionaries, word studies. I mean, everything. And then it'll throw it there in front of you to quickly access. But, those are two of the big ones. And then there's a third one, I think, slightly below those two, is called BibleWorks. And the only reason I put that below it, it's a little cheaper, but it's also more of a original language study tool. They don't spend a lot of time creating commentaries and other kinds of books. It's mostly about getting at the Hebrew and the Greek and that kind of thing. And all of these will run on both Windows and Mac. However, BibleWorks is more of a Windows program that runs in emulation on a Mac. If you ever heard of Wine, which is an emulation program that lets you run Windows stuff on a Mac or on Linux or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Word Search is the fourth biggie out there. And Word Search is a little bit more like a book reader. It's not as advanced as the others, but it still has a huge library of stuff. They're owned by Lifeway, the Southern Baptist Publishing arm.
Right.
And so because of that, they've got a lot of content. And then I put sort of down the list, there's a few others. Olive Tree Bible Software is more of a mobile company. They focus more on mobile, but they've got some pretty good desktop software or laptop software as well. So, and they're owned by HarperCollins now, and their Christian publishing arm of HarperCollins has a huge library, and they connect with Zondervan. Zondervan's got a huge library of books. So, so that's kind of the main players out there.
All right. So as I'm kind of trying to get to, we've got some pastors that are listening to this, and they may or may not be using this Bible software already. What's a typical use case? Let's say, and Phil across the table from me has preached many a sermon. I have never taken the podium here, so I'm a little.
Well, back in the old days, I had books scattered all across my kitchen table. This is the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. So let's say, I'm a pastor and I'm teaching next weekend, or I'm teaching every weekend. And I've got a topic in mind. Maybe we're going through a series on marriage or something like that. How would I use some of this study Bible software I assume the primary use is to enhance my message so I know exactly what I'm talking about as I preach, right?
Well, yeah, that's number one is, doing Bible studying passages of Scripture, or searching for content related to your topic. If you're more of a topical preacher, there's in preaching, you'd mentioned my education in preaching. There's two sort of schools of thought on preaching. One is to be an expositor, which you focus mainly on a single passage, and you might bring in other passages, but you're focused mainly on that. And then there's the topical side, which is, like you said, maybe I'm going to preach on legalism, and so you're kind of jumping around for a few different verses. Either way, you can use this software to search for content about it. But when you do find a passage, whether it's in a topical or in an expository message, you're going to want to get to know what that passage means. And so, kind of the workflow that I use, and that I think most good preaching is done using this kind of a workflow, is you want to do an inductive study of the Bible to begin with. And so you're looking at it either in the English, or if you're really good with the Greek and Hebrew, you'll look at it in the Greek and Hebrew. Just kind of come up with what are you finding there. Most Bible programs, the good ones anyway, have what's called a notes feature. And so you can record your observances right there in the software, and then later on those notes become searchable, so you can find them. If you came up with some great quote from a commentary or another book or something like that, you can find that stuff later on. And then you're going to go from there to doing, probably like word studies. So a lot of these are Strong's based, and so a word will be tagged with a Strong's code, and that Strong's code will then link to a whole series of Hebrew and Greek lexicons and dictionaries, so that you can find out what they mean. You can search the Bible with these codes, the Strong's tags. For example, if you're studying, John 3:16 has the word perish in it, and you want to say, well, where else is the word perish used? Then you can really quickly right-click on that in most of these Bible software and tell it to search the whole Bible for the same Greek word that is translated perish. And so you can see how it's used in other passages. And if you do that before you actually go to the commentaries, then what you're doing is you're discovering on your own instead of discovering through the eyes and heart of another interpreter. And then what I do is after that, then I go to the commentaries, the Bible dictionaries that are all connected to those verses. And then I just kind of confirm what I've learned from my own research and study. And, sometimes you get new observations that maybe you didn't make or didn't find. And then you kind of collect all that. I collect all that in my notes that I attach a note to a Bible verse. And then I just kind of read through that. Another thing you want to do is probably read through your translation multiple times. I know some people out there are King James only Christians who, I'm not one of those. But
well, look, if it was good enough for Peter.
That's right. Yeah. So, I'll go through and read it in multiple translations. One of the cool features of Logos Bible software is they have this tool that lets you see visually how different a verse is using what they call the verb river. And what it does is just each translation has a color. And then the parts that have the wider, it's hard to explain. It looks like a ribbon across your screen. And if the ribbon gets wider, that means the translations translated that word into a bunch of different ways. Mm-hmm. If the ribbon is narrower, it means they all agreed it should be translated this way. And what that does for you is you read your translations and you see that, that word's, they're all over the map. There's a ton of different ways that it's translated. What that tells you is that word is something you're going to want to pay careful attention to, because it may not always mean what this translation says it means. You might disagree and think it means something else. And so that's a visual way that you can get at that. And that's a pretty cool feature of Logos. And some of the others have similar kinds of things, but that Logos is the one I actually use the most. It's not because it's the best. It's just because I've invested more money over the years in books for my Logos library. So I have all of them because, when I was writing for Christian Reading Magazine, I would get comped copies of all of them to review them. And so, I have all of them and use all of them on occasion, but that's just the one I use the most because I put more of my own money into it.
So along those lines, there's these different Bible software tools out there. Is there characteristics of either pastors or people out there that would make one more suitable to somebody than another, or just is there trends out there where it's kind of like the more artistic people and music oriented people get Macs instead of PCs? Is there any distinctions between how can you help somebody choose what might be the best Bible software for them?
Yeah, I think there are. First of all, we're really moving into the mobile realm, whereas before, almost everybody who did serious Bible study was doing it on a computer, either a laptop or a desktop. Well, I know plenty of people who use their iPad Pro for 99% of their Bible study. And so if you're one of those kinds of people, you're going to want to find a program that has both a good desktop app and a good mobile app. And if I was recommending them, I would put Olive Tree. If you're a Mac and iOS guy, I'd say Accordance, although they promise they're coming out with an Android version. Olive Tree has, their most of their money is put into their mobile apps, but they have a decent desktop app. But Word Search doesn't have a very good mobile app. And so if you're one of those, you'd probably steer clear of Word Search. BibleWorks doesn't make a mobile app. And so you'd want to steer clear of BibleWorks if you're a mobile first or a mobile often kind of person. And so that's why I would look at Accordance and Olive Tree and Logos as the three. If you're really into the mobile realm, those are the ones that I would go for. Mm-hmm. If you're really Android, it's just Logos and Olive Tree right now because Accordance doesn't have their Android out.
But if
you're iOS, all three of them are very good.
Do you ever take your tablet or computer up to the pulpit when you're preaching?
I do that every week, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, but I don't use my Bible software during that time. I write my outline and the text of my sermon or my Bible studies. I write them in Microsoft Word, usually on a computer. And then, Office 365 has a great, uses OneDrive for syncing, and you can quickly open these up on a tablet. So I have an iPad Pro, and that's what I bring into the pulpit with me. I'm, 47 years old, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. So that allows me to make the text nice and big. Plus, it saves me paper. I used to print all my sermon outlines, but I don't print hardly anything anymore because that's most of what I printed was sermon and Bible study outlines. And now I just bring the tablet in.
It-
But with iOS, they have the side-by-side screen where you can show both. And so when I do need to open a Bible, I can just swipe to the side, tap the Bible icon, pop it up, and I can open it. So I can do that.
At the
And then also, your Keynote and PowerPoint have very good mobile apps. And so if you're ever having to control your own visuals, you can do that. You were talking earlier about your workflow or we were talking about that, and you asked me if the Bible software is mostly for just studying the Bible. But another thing it's good for, it's becoming more popular. These companies are putting a lot of visuals into their software that you can then present. And I know some people who they have their Bible app open, and that's what they're showing on the screen all the time. And they're tapping things and showing maps, or they'll even put pictures, and you can even get videos, illustration videos in some of this software now. I don't personally do that. I put things in worship software. We use Media Shout at our church, and so I either put JPEG images or MP4 files in Media Shout to display. But you can get a lot of that stuff out of this software. There's a lot of great visual imagery in most of these.
Yeah, that's amazing. And obviously when we're talking about these Bible softwares, I mean, these are all things you have access to online, right? I mean, you don't have to load stuff on your hard drive anymore, correct?
Yes and no. Mostly for the good stuff, I mostly no still, unfortunately. There are websites that you can use for simple Bible study. There's things like Bible Gateway has a great website. There's a few others out there. I've got, if you go to kevinpurcell.org and search for online studies, then I actually did a 3-post series about 4 or 5 years ago, and most of the links that I have in those articles are still very valid as the best online Bible study. And I had video demos of each one of them. So there's a lot of great stuff online, but it's mostly just searching the Bible, reading the Bible, and then maybe showing some mostly public domain commentaries and things like that, Bible dictionaries and stuff like that. To get at, I talked about word search not being that great on the mobile side. The interesting thing is they have an excellent website. If you go to, let me see if I can find the name of it for you real quick. It's My Word Search Bible. It's mywsb.com. And if you already have Word Search, you can log in with your Word Search account, and your whole library, or most of it anyway, will show up in there. I think they have the best online site for doing Bible study in your web browser. I think Logos does the second best job, but you have to be a subscriber to a service called Logos Now, or what's the other one that they have? I could find it for you. It's not that hard to find, but you have to be a subscriber, and it costs at least like $10 a month to use the really good one. Now they have a free version called Biblios, or Biblia, Biblia.com, that you can use if you're a Logos customer. But I just, I have a Chromebook that I use sometimes, and until they recently started putting Android apps on Chromebooks, I knew if I was going to do some real serious Bible study for my sermon prep, I wasn't going to bring my Chromebook, because these online sites just aren't good enough yet for the work I'm going to do. Now, maybe if you're a Sunday school teacher, and you're not doing some serious word studies or that sort of thing, you probably could do fine with these websites.
Okay.
But for a pastor, or definitely for a scholar who's working on a doctoral dissertation, or you're a teacher at a seminary, you're not going to want to use these online sites.
Got it.
They're just not good enough yet.
So Kevin, the big question here for a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, is, man, this stuff sounds great, but how much does it cost?
Well, that's a great question, because it depends on where you go. Mm-hmm. To get a basic collection of useful stuff, when I say useful, I'm talking about more than just King James Version with the Strong's Concordance and Matthew Henry commentary, public domain stuff, you're probably going to want to spend at least a couple $100 up to, you can buy a collection at Logos or at Accordance that costs you $20,000. Now, no one's going to do that. Not very many, unless they got more money than sense. But I bought my first Logos collection when I was a student at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary as a graduation gift to myself. It was $1,000 regularly, and I bought it for $500 on a student discount. And that got me a pretty serious theological library at that time. And so, but of course, I was treating myself because I was about ready to get my doctorate. Right. That's the thing you don't maybe want to do. But you can get a free book reader from Olive Tree, and then just add books as you need them. And as I said, Olive Tree is probably one of the better mobile apps. You can get free apps from any of these on your iPad or your Android device, and then download the free book reader for your desktop. And again, you might get the ESV and, a few public domain books like King James Version and stuff like that. And then just try it out, see which one you like, see which one feels like it's more your style, right, and then go from there. If you're just reading the Bible, you mentioned Life Church's Bible app. That's what I get. If you're just reading the Bible and that's all you really want to do is read and search the Bible, maybe post some pretty pictures of a verse or something like that on Facebook, that's the one I pick for the average user.
Good deal. All right. So we're running out of time, unfortunately, Kevin. This has been excellent. I don't think we've done a podcast on this before. The website for Kevin is Kevin Purcell, and you spell that obviously KevinPurcell.org. Is Theotech got its own domain?
Theotech.com is a separate domain, but it points to the same site.
Right, so. Theotech.com, THEOTEK.com. Lots of good stuff on there. You talk not just about Bible software. I see you talk about some cameras and some streaming, and you got a lot of good stuff on there. We need to have you back on to talk to you more about this stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I've covered worship software quite a bit at ChurchTech.tv.com. Yeah. That's another site I write for. I don't own that one, but I just work with Lauren Hunter, the publisher over there. Yeah. And so I've covered a lot of that. And then because I write for 2 mobile sites, I cover a lot of laptop and phone and tablet hardware. I used to do mostly reviews for those sites. Now I'm doing more help and how-to kinds of articles over there. Yeah. I don't write as much there as I used to, but our guys we have 5 of us who work together on Theotech, and they're all just geeks, and so they like anything. That most of them are Apple geeks, and I'm sort of the Windows guy of the group, and so
we're sorry to hear that. Sorry.
Whenever Apple comes out with new stuff, they're all chomping at the bit to talk about it. I was surprised they didn't want to talk about the new iPads last night, but whenever Microsoft comes out with new stuff, they're like, yawn, and I'm wanting to talk about that. But anyway, so we have a good time. But yeah, we cover all kinds of stuff.
Oh, good deal. All right. Well, we're out of time, Kevin, and we just get out of here. But again, if you want to get a hold of Kevin, just go to KevinPurcell.org. That's probably a good way to get a hold of him. And you can ask him all sorts of questions, and he will give you the answers. He's very well versed in that stuff. So, Kevin, thank you again so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to do so.
And the guy across the table from me is Steve Lacey. I'm Phil Thompson. And again, we thank you for listening to us. If you want to get a hold of us, just go to support@StreamingChurch.tv. Love to get your feedback. And we'll catch you next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Take care.